Welcome, welcome, welcome to you each and all. We appreciate your engagement here with us today. Our board and staff could not be more excited about the momentum of this forum and the collective strength that it shows. And we're thrilled to have the added bonus of being part of South Florida's forward-thinking 4th annual 10 Days of Connection. Hello to all of our partners and friends. So we had over 250 participants registered to join us today. And I'd like to break down some inspiring details about that nice big number. Connected here today are subject experts and dedicated community partners, sponsors who have proven themselves to be passionate about our mission. That includes the sponsor of this series, the Miami Dolphins Football Unites, Florida Blue Foundation, and the Miami Foundation, who generously support so much of our work. But so do grassroots and major donors. Both time, talent, and treasure. We're all here together today in one virtual room. Importantly, we have representatives of many of our elected officials, including Congresswoman Donna Shalala, Senator Marco Rubio, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, State Attorney General Ashley Moody, and Representative Debbie Mercosel Powell, plus many civil servants and dedicated law enforcement agents from across many, many different agencies. And I'm especially excited to say many regular people, unaffiliated members of the community who've answered the call to become citizen first responders, people who care enough to be aware and to be prepared for when gender violence crosses their path, because we know the statistics and we know it will. Someone will need our support and the support of their community to move through it and past it. And those of you who have joined us today will be ready. And for maximum inspiration, we want you to know that the Women's Fund Miami-Dade founder, Marilyn Gladstone, along with a powerful cohort of dedicated, savvy women and men who have worked alongside her, many since our beginnings 26 years ago, are also online today. Current board members, past board members, pragmatic and generous donors and volunteers, I can feel their presence, and I hope you can too. So, I don't know if all of you knew this, but the Women's Fund Miami-Dade was founded and created to empower women and girls in the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew. Did you know that? Well, crises, both then and now, are great focusers. We collectively, with you as the #OneTeam, are harnessing that power today around COVID-19. And you'll see campaigns and calls to action that we think are going to excite you because there's a lot we can do. We are all needed. So this is how this webinar is going to work. We will need your involvement, so please stay tuned. I hope your coffee is delicious. Wish I could share it with you, and we will see you in person again, because the in-person energy is great, but so many of you have been able to join today because we're not in person, so we have to take the good side of this. You're going to see a PSA from our state attorney, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle. You're going to see information on open courthouses, open services. Links are going to be shown in the running chat, and we need you to participate because we want you to share those resources. Please be multipliers. We also ask you to see, you'll see in this visual, there are chat tabs and Q&A tabs. I ask you to please pose your questions for the panelists in the Q&A tab, and I'm going to be monitoring that, and I'll try to get as many as we possibly can for the final Q&A session. In the chat, you'll know that when we're in person, we often get your key solutions, issues that you identify, as well as your ideas for solutions. So our programs and operations director, Carolina Garcia, is busy working behind the scenes, and she is going to take those posts that you put in the chat and gather them. We have a running archive, and that information is and will be used to shape our work as we move onward. Okay, so now let's focus on today's issue. Many of you have seen this original domestic violence campaign, a core freedom from violence pillar issue for all of us. And now next you're going to see our updated campaign imagery, and this was created for times of COVID-19. You'll hear exciting updates about that today from some of our panelists. And we are involved. Your Women's Fund is involved. Excited. News and statistics are pouring in from across the globe, nationally and internationally, about what's happening during these times of quarantine. For example, internationally, we have seen that in France, reports of domestic violence have increased by 30% since the lockdown began on March 17th. In Argentina, emergency calls for domestic violence cases have increased by 25% since the lockdown began. And in Cyprus and Singapore, helplines have registered an increase in calls of 30 to 33%. Pretty amazing. So today, our brilliant expert panelists are going to address what's happening in South Florida. As they do, I'm going to ask them each to consider what statistics we have available to us in our community and what might be helpful to you to quantify to inform future policy and future dedication of resources. And then I'm going to ask you to please roll the PSA.
Crime doesn't stop just because there's a crisis. And though we should stay home, unless we have to do something essential during this pandemic, you do not need to stay trapped in violence. This is a moment of increased anxiety and stress for all of us, but even more so for families that experience domestic violence. Being confined in a space for a prolonged period of time can make a bad situation even worse. However, there is hope. State Attorney's Office, law enforcement, and victim services providers are still open. We have a safety net in place to assist all victims of domestic violence. There are shelters with space available, and they are following the CDC health guidelines. If you're in immediate danger, call 911. But if you are experiencing abuse, report it. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children. You are not alone. We are here to help. You can reach State Attorney's Domestic Violence Unit at 305-547-0140. Remember, stay at home, yes. Stay trapped in violence, no.
Thank you. So, a couple of housekeeping issues. Want you to know that Dr. Bello is joining us. She is with us, and Carolina Garcia is making sure that she's able to get on the line with us. We've been in touch this morning with Nathan Earl, the chairperson CEO of the Arc of Freedom Alliance, one of our wonderful, amazing community partners. He's actually traveling and is not in good health today, and he sends everybody his very best and his regrets. We know that he'll be joining us in a future Impact Collaborative soon. So the best way and with most efficiency that we are going to work this today, we're going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves with an overview of their work, a brief 2-minute introduction. For simplicity, we're planning to go in the order that you see each other on the slides here. If Dr. Bello isn't on by the time it's her turn, we'll just skip on to Ivon after that.
I've been on
that's
for
how
a while.
we'll do. And if you,
I'm on.
yay, Dr. Bello.
Okay.
It is an inspiration and honor to have you. I wish each of you could speak for an hour and a half yourselves. I would be rapt, but we're looking forward to everything you have to share with us today. So we're going to start with you, please, Judge Kelly, 2 minutes. And if you run over, don't mind us. We'll try and give you a heads up. And you're on mute, Judge Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so proud to be part of this Impact Collaborative. My name is Judge Carroll Kelly. I am the Administrative Judge of the Domestic Violence Division for Miami-Dade County. I have served as a judge in the Domestic Violence Division for 22 years, and I'm very happy to be part of this Impact Collaborative with my wonderful colleagues and individuals who I've worked with through the years. So thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brook Bello. I'm founder and CEO of More to Life. We are an anti-trafficking organization that works with victims in direct service, the creation of the first international human trafficking app and VR technology, in addition to being a Google Next Gen policy leader. And we run the first diversion program for male violators and buyers of human trafficking and Live Until You Die course in Miami-Dade and other counties throughout Florida. I guess that's enough for now.
Thank you, Dr. Bello. Ivon?
Hi, good morning to all, and thank you to the Women's Fund for this wonderful event. My name is Ivon Mesa, and I am the Bureau Chief for the Community Action and Human Services Department. I have the privilege of overseeing the Violence Prevention and Intervention Division for the county, which encompasses the shelters for battered women, transitional programs, intake advocacy units, and the One Family Justice Center that we have in the state, which is called here the Coordinated Victims Assistance Center. And I'm very excited about it with all of my wonderful colleagues here.
Thank you, Ivon. Darrel?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Darrel Ambrosini, and I'm the chief of the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office Misdemeanor Domestic Violence Unit. I've been in this role for about a year and a half, and I'm tasked with supervising about 20 attorneys, most of which are new to the law and just graduated law school. So I help train them with the nuances of our job, and most critically to this panel, how to prosecute domestic violence cases and advocate for the victims in the community. It's great to be here.
Thank you so very, very much. We have key issues that we're trying to address really specifically. We know that domestic violence is a 24/7, 365 issue, but things have been, we're going to try and focus on critical issues that we are encountering under these times of quarantine and COVID-19. Judge Kelly, can you tell us what concerns and specific core issues you're seeing?
Well, yes. So thank you. I think the biggest issue that we are struggling with in the court system, and I'll address my remarks regarding the court system, is that we are afraid that people are not aware that the courts are open. And there is nothing further from the truth. We have been open continually since COVID-19 hit Miami. We have not shut down for one moment. There are intake centers in North Dade, South Dade, Hialeah, the Joseph Caleb Center, CVAC has the intake center, and South Dade. So we want people to know that we're open. And I think many times when there's a stay-in-place shelter and we're hearing about everything shutting down, that many victims don't understand that the courts are open. So I think that is the number one issue that we're having right now. We do have a slide that I presented, and I don't know if you can put that up. These are our filing numbers. So you can see that we have steadily gone down. In March, you can see the numbers went down to 475. In our April, these are for our civil filing cases at all courthouses. And in April, 320 people filed. So we are way down. So we are trying to get the word out to people to come to court. All the services are open. We've partnered and had discussions with all of our community partners, with legal aid, with CVAC, with the state attorney's office, with all of the victim service providers. Come, we can link you to services. We can help you. You can get an injunction. But I think people are afraid. I think they're isolated. I think they're being monitored in their homes. They have children, elderly people. There's transportation and economic issues that prevent them from being able to get out of the home and access the home. So I think together, we really need to get out into the community that we are here for you and you don't need to suffer in silence.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bello.
What's the question?
If you can tell us the key issues that you see people facing that you're working with, especially in these times of quarantine.
I think when Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez put out through the United Nations this worldwide surge, we know that it's affecting Florida. We know that it's affecting our nation, and there's been some masking, as the judge said, in terms of the documentation over the reporting of it. And so More to Life put out a press release about a month ago called Lost in Crisis. And these are the unforgotten victims of COVID-19, human trafficking or domestic violence, which is a profound root cause of human trafficking. And then there's that whole collateral damage with youth and the re-victimization of youth who end up, I want to say almost all human trafficking victims come from a domestic violence past. So I think that Latin cultures, typically African-American cultures especially, have a certain, whatever happens in this home stays in this home. And then obviously many families, but I think as the judge stated, we're seeing just a underreporting because of fear and nowhere to go. Typically, what has to happen more so is people being unafraid to sort of just call the police and share. But where are they going to go? Is he going to leave the home? Or where is he going to live? And so we've seen a surge in human trafficking. We've seen a surge in domestic violence with human trafficking victims living with older boyfriends. And we've seen sometimes they've been afraid to report it and report it only to us. And so we report it. And so I think what the judge says is absolutely on point.
Thank you so much. Yvonne.
Yes, very similar to what have been already expressed, Myra. The issue that we see is that we immediately saw after COVID-19 a very significant decrease of the number of victims coming into our programs, not only into the Coordinated Victims Assistance Center, one-stop center, but also into our shelters for emergency services. So obviously in Miami-Dade County, we are fortunate to have both communal and non-communal shelters for battered women. And we have seen a decrease in both, but definitely we have seen more of a decrease in the communal living facility, which is Safe Space North. So in speaking to many of our victims that are still coming through CVAC and we're still having contact or calling, we realize that there is an obvious fear of how it was mentioned before. They don't know if going into a shelter or even going into CVAC to seek services is it safe. Are we not exposing ourselves to more potential for the being contagious because of the virus? So the message that we want to send out is that we have taken all the measures that we could to be in compliance with CDC measures and guidelines so that we can offer services while still maintaining our operations safe, particularly in the communal shelter where we have families living together and and you're contemplating whether whether should I leave my home where I live with the abuser and go into a communal living setting, that could be really, really scary. So my issue today and my purpose in having this discussion is to alert and to inform our community, our victims, and the community in general that services are available. CVAC is open Monday through Friday. As usual, we have not closed, hours have not been reduced, and the shelters, again, they're open and ready to receive clients. We have availability at this time, and we have done a series of things. I don't know, Maria, if you want me to discuss the measures at this point or if we would address that later. But we want to make sure that the clients know and the community know that we're ready in the shelters to accept victims and to help them.
Wonderful. If you'd like, we can address that during solutions, which is really the reason we're all here. And hopefully that will be the longest part of our discussion. So thank you. Yes, Yvonne. Darrel.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I want to talk about the background of this field of COVID-19 during this pandemic and quarantine with domestic violence, and the fact that the biggest issue is the victims are in isolation with their abusers. And with both parties constantly at the home, there's more opportunity for abuse, but also less opportunity for victims to contact police and get out of it. Furthermore, the stressors and triggers that usually lead to violence have increased through this pandemic. For example, the elevated economic concerns, schooling and childcare issue, unemployment, uncertainty, all of these are generally linked to alcohol and drug abuse, which are triggers to violence. While these triggers should lead to more crime and more domestic violence based on our past history and other crises such as hurricanes, it's not been the case. To further illustrate this, how COVID-19 has lessened this impact on arrests, in April of 2020, there have been only 497 total domestic violence arrests between felonies and misdemeanor. Compared to 2019 in April, where there were 687 total arrests, that's a decrease of 190 cases. We can't be naive to think that domestic violence is lowering during this pandemic, as we've seen in past situations of hurricanes, such as Hurricane Andrew, where people isolated should lead to a spike of domestic violence. Compounding these issues is the fear on the part of the victim to report domestic violence due to the potential repercussions of a loved one. As we all know, domestic violence is a cycle to a loved or familial member. While always those stressors and that back and forth of do I report an abuser is high, here it's even elevated, but because do I want to involve more police into my house and possibly make my sterile environment not sterile? Do I want to risk my loved one going into custody in a non-sterile environment? All of these are stressors that are going onto a victim to dissuade them from calling police. Furthermore, the child custody and the monetary aspect of it, a lot of people have lost jobs. If the abuser is the financial supporter, the victim may now even more so have to stay with him or her to continue the relationship for their own financial security. Same with child support, with schooling being out. Additionally, as Ivon said, most victims aren't aware of the resources available to them and think their home is a safe haven, even with abuse, over going to a shelter that may risk their exposure to the COVID-19. And from a criminal aspect, for criminal proceedings, even when a victim is calling police, following up with a victim has become even more challenging, because while we are aware that a lot of times victims get back with their abusers, here it's even more prevalent when it's risk their abuser, their loved one, being out in the open to this pandemic. Bringing them back into the house makes it much more difficult for us to speak with these victims, get their statements when their abusers could possibly be in the room with them.
Major issues. I'm going to once again do a reminder to everybody who's with us in this virtual room to please do put the issues that you find that you're encountering. And we have many service providers and law enforcement officials, elected officials who are online with us today. Plus members of the public, please let us know in that chat tab what you are finding the main issues to be. And next we're going to go, and here is where we really want to go more in depth. As I said before, solutions. That's what impact collaboratives are about. Individual solutions, and we're all interested in the collaborative solutions that by working together, we feel it can address many of these issues. And we'd like to start with you again, Judge Kelly. And you're on mute, Judge Kelly.
She also has a question from Carol Corbin to Judge Kelly in the chat box. You might answer it at the same time, maybe?
Yes, let me just open up the chat box.
Sure, I can do that. I can read it for you, Judge Kelly, if you'd like.
Okay.
If couples are isolated together and violence is erupting, how can an injunction be effective?
Well, what an injunction does is it removes the offending party from the home where the petitioner lives. So it can be extremely effective because it can provide safety from the abuse. The other great thing about coming and seeking a restraining order or an injunction is that feeding into what you said, Myra, about collaboration, our court has a long history of community collaboration. So when individuals come to court, yes, they can come and receive a restraining order, and that's ruled on immediately within 45 minutes. They're going to know whether or not they've received a restraining order, and the police will go and remove the respondent, the offender from the home, allow the offender to get some personal belongings, and then the court can set up all sorts of links to services for the victim. And that's really a key component of victim safety. So at our courthouse now, we have social distancing measures in for victims coming in to file restraining orders. There's tables that are 6 feet apart. There's phone calls that are being placed between the clerks and the victim so that there doesn't have to be that face-to-face contact. But also more importantly, we have posted throughout all of our intake centers information that our partners are open. There are a few flyers that if you could put up, this is posted posted at our intake centers. It's letting all the victims know that our Coordinated Victims Assistance Center is open, that all of our services through Miami-Dade County are up and operational. Please call. And in addition to the CVAC services, we also have on the next slide free legal assistance for any individual coming in through Dade Legal Aid. We have this posted in multiple languages at every courthouse throughout Dade County. But it can keep people safe because it will remove the abuser. It will allow the petitioner to come to court. And right now we're doing it virtually. So it's a little bit different. And let me just tie into that. Because it is different, we have on our website placed a lot of information on how to appear remotely. We understand that there are going to be technical barriers to individuals using the platform that we use right now called Zoom, but we have our JAs trained, our bailiffs trained, calls come in from victims and respondents who want to have a court case, and we are walking them through the steps necessary. And so far, it's been going very well. We've had cases being heard for the last month, so people are having access to the court. Their concerns are being met. Our domestic violence drug court is operating. Judge Canava has held drug court hearings and check-ins, and Judge James, as our mental health court director, has held mental health court check-ins. So we're keeping an eye on the people. We're offering the services. Our batterers intervention programs are all open and providing services to respondents. We have compliance calendars, so we're checking up on everybody to ensure they're doing what they should be doing. So all of this together will keep victims safe. We just need to get the word out.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bello.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Judge. I think that, you know, coming from a family that was profoundly deluged with domestic violence, even though we were an upper middle class family, when we were children, we would see our mother get beat so bad that we couldn't recognize her face. I think this was a precursor to the rape and to the trafficking, and seeing domestic violence as this through line to different types of trauma. And so while we have to follow legislative practices and we have to follow the standards of reporting, calling 911, going to the police, be willing to have someone that you love or care for be removed out of the home, or in turn, be willing to be removed out of your own home for a time with your children. We also have to understand that the collateral damage that male and female children learn abuse by what takes place within the home. And so part of the solutions within COVID, I understand, are the mental health balances. So while we're reporting, there's still this process of restorative justice. So you have an abuser who's violent, who's behind bars. Perhaps he's made to do anger management classes and other classes and courses related to rolling back from domestic violence, but that's not going to treat the symptomology for the victim or for the children who are secondary victims. And so I think COVID, I don't know about you all, but it has taught me, my staff, even my family, things about what's more important in life. You know, what are we going to do after this? And I tend to be a workaholic. And so I think that when families struggle with that type of pain, whether it's economics, whether it's behavioral issues, where it's unmitigated trauma that they haven't dealt with, we have to begin to provide and build programs, in-person and digital programs, that cause restorative justice so that men, I know in our RJED program in Miami-Dade, about 28% of the men who purchase that violate misdemeanor and felony were abused as children. Sometimes, Mara, in our class in Miami-Dade, they cry, and it's the first time they've ever told anyone of the trauma they suffered. And so we have to find a safe place for men in terms of prevention so that they're balanced. And this, you know, deals with family therapy, group therapy, prevention for men, peer-to-peer mentoring, etc. And also how the upbringing for young men. We know that 1 in, I think, 4 or 6 women is violated, but then 1 in 9 men are abused as adults when we think of domestic violence. And so we have to also look at the social capital, the Tujan model. So while he's made to go to anger management classes, the high propensity of couples get back together. They don't break up. And so she has to be made to do the same type. We kind of treat the violator as the violator, but don't necessarily provide the prevention treatment for the family and for the woman unless she's in an incredible domestic violence shelter getting that treatment. So if they're going to get back together, they have to do family therapy. They have to find mitigations of trauma and pain. And then the children, once again, have to do the same. And there's just so much more that we can do when we think of balance and the equitability of a healthy family structure.
Thank you so much. So much work to be done there. It's really fascinating that actually the opportunities are there. Ivon.
Yes, with regard to our operations, Maria, we have made significant changes in order for us to provide a safer environment where our clients can feel that they don't have to choose between accessing services and being safe. So for example, we have put a hand sanitizer station in the entrance of all of our programs. So now if you go to CVAC or if you go to Save a Space or in transition, you're going to have to go through that as the first step to get into the facility. You're gonna have to do hand sanitizing, and then from there you gain access to the facility. So then we have made changes. For example, in the communal living setting, which is Save a Space North, we have we have redistributed our rooms. Now every room is only utilized for one family. In the past, and what I mean by that, to be a little more clear, for example, there are bedrooms that we have in our shelters that may accommodate, for example, 6 individuals. But if the family that we have placed in that particular room is only of a 4-member family, we are now distributing our space in that fashion. In other words, we're not mixing families. So if we have a family of 4 and 2 beds are therefore unoccupied, we're letting that be the case, so that every family can have a sense of unity, a sense of privacy within their own assigned bedroom. Also, we have a lot of common areas where victims will go to watch TV and to do other type of activities, but we have ordered a TV per room so that victims do not have to go into the common areas to watch TV. We have instituted kitchen schedules, for example, so that every room has a specific time where they can cook their meals. So we don't have many clients in the kitchen at any given time. Same thing with all common areas. So it's really a matter of looking at it from a very, from a safety perspective and making sure that we're abiding by the CDC guidelines and that we're allowing our victims to have those 6 feet that are required to feel safe, providing them with PPE. They all have masks. Not only the employees, Maria, but the clients are provided with masks and gloves so that they can feel, again, that they have that level of protection while being at the shelter. But I think that the one important thing that I really want to emphasize, as it was mentioned before, is that we work very closely with Judge Carroll Kelly and the Domestic Violence Division. And we are we're trying to really assist our victims that have a protective order by providing them also with the ability to do their appearance from Zoom from CVAC. So we have laptops prepared with Zoom and CVAC so that if there is a victim, as the judge explained, not every victim may have a laptop, they may not understand, they may not be familiar with the Zoom. And so we want to make sure that victims understand that if they don't need to get familiar, if they don't know how to do it, if they don't have the equipment, they come to CVAC, and we're going to facilitate their accessibility to the courts. So we're issuing injunctions virtually. We're working with our clients. Most of the services that we're providing are being provided via phone, via technology, but they're taking place. We're doing a lot of injunctions, not a lot, because we already explained there is a decrease. But we're doing injunctions from CVAC. We're doing relocation cases. We're getting a lot of requests for assistance with rent. Imagine a lot of individuals have lost their jobs and they find themselves without being able to pay for their rent. So if they are domestic violence victims and they are clients of ours, we can help by providing them with direct relief for rental assistance. We have telehealth, so we're able to provide crisis counseling. We're able to provide therapy, individual and group. We're still having some of the empowerment groups that we normally conduct. So all of that is taking place. I don't want any victim to feel that she needs someone to speak to, and that to have that feeling that there's no one out there available. We are here very fortunate in Miami-Dade County because our resources for victims are still intact. They're there, they're available, and it's only a matter of them reaching out. And that's why I think every one of us plays a very important role, because we may not be involved in this field, or we may not be victims or providers, but we always can come across someone who may be faced with this dilemma, particularly now where environments where they don't have the capability of calling and speaking to someone. And to that, Mary, I also want to let everyone know that effective next week, we're adding texting to the hotline. So to the helpline, clients will be able to just text us, and we are now in the phase of training and preparation so that this could be launched in a week or two maximum. And I think that's a very important step that we're taking, Maria, because again, you may not be able to make that phone call, but you may be able to send that text and to guide you in that fashion. We've also have created a QR code, a quick response code, so that victims do not have to carry our phone numbers in their contacts, and so that they have quick access to calling us. Once you utilize, scan the code, it'll take you exactly to our phone number, and you can make a phone call from there without having to have that number with you or written in a piece of paper, which could be very dangerous as well.
So interesting. Everything that you're saying there reminds us all that it's never done. There are always new iterations. Situations change, our communities change, technology changes, and we need to not only catch up,
Exactly,
keep up, but we need to be the cutting edge. When we all come together and see the shared issues, it really does refocus us on thinking ahead. What do we need our policymakers to understand? What do we need them to fund? How are we reacting to the community? What are the leaders and the people who are in situations instructing us about the realities of what's going on? We're not going to know. They need to tell us. We need to learn how to listen and get there ahead of time, 2 steps ahead.
If I may add, yesterday there was a resolution that was passed. This resolution is about the domestic violence campaign. It was sponsored, the main sponsor is our Commissioner, Rebecca Sosa, and she has been working with our wonderful Catherine Fernando Rando, the state attorney, who has put all her time and efforts in making this resolution, pass. It was passed unanimously yesterday with the support of all the county commissioners. I think everyone understands what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and the necessity that we have to basically enhance our response during these very difficult times.
Thrilled that you brought that up, and I'm sure, Darrell, you'll take it from there. It's been our honor as Women's Fund Miami-Dade to collaborate with the state attorney and with your office, Ivon, and that the current imaging that we have will go to good use. We are ready and excited to work with you. And Darrell, I don't know if you're within your solutions comments, if you've got some news for us on that campaign.
Yes, I'll speak of that campaign a little bit, but the main solution relating to domestic violence during this time is communication and coordination amongst all community partners, as well as apprising the community of all available resources. By all community partners understanding the resources, we can actually have one unified message for victims in the community. That's why a panel such as this is great and very needed at this time. So I'm going to first talk about other measures that the state attorney's office is doing, and then I'll get into the resolution. Ms. Rundle, as you've seen, has made multiple public service announcements through our social media pages to get the word out that our office is still operational. We have included our domestic violence unit hotline number, which was on the screen earlier. It's 305-547-0140. And while all victims, of course, should call police first when abuse is happening or has occurred, our office is always available to speak and get you through that situation and understand and take your statements and provide the resources. Our mobile operations victim services moves unit has been working remotely. While they're not reporting to victims' houses anymore to comply with social distancing, immediately after police make an arrest, they refer their cases, the felony cases, to this unit, who then reach out to victims to provide resources and services available, as well as attempt to get their statement. As we know, getting a statement from a victim sooner rather than later is imperative to ensure the most details and most reliability. Additionally, our domestic assistance response team, DART, and our victim specialists still contact every victim prior to first appearance to let them best know what the bond procedure is and what stay away order will be imposed in their cases. These victim specialists, again, refer services and resources that are appropriate to each and every victim. Our victim specialists are also still available to remotely guide victims of domestic abuse through the injunction process. We also have been in communication, as Ivon said, with CVAC to understand their capacities and capabilities during this time so we can best inform our victims of the same. Again, that unified voice is important. And as Ivon referenced, through the work of Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, the Miami-Dade Commission, CVAC, and all of our community partners, the resolution was passed on Tuesday, supporting the creation of an outreach campaign to inform domestic violence victims that shelters, domestic violence courts, and service providers are available and have taken steps to keep families together and safe from COVID-19 pandemic. We've understood the issues that I mentioned earlier and are trying to explain to victims we know their concerns and we are taking those steps to fix it and to give a safe haven for all victims even during this time. As Ivon referenced, we are adding capabilities such as texting, QR codes, hashtag, pretty much any possible way to make this more prevalent to our community, the better. Now, our criminal court system, as Judge Kelly referenced, is operational both at the felony and misdemeanor levels. While in-person hearings and jury trials have been suspended due to the pandemic, the courts quickly shifted to the virtual platform of Zoom. Through Zoom, we're conducting first appearance court, motions, arraignments, the monitoring of cases such as drug court and mental health court, and in some instances, evidentiary hearings. The state attorney's office has been working at all of these calendars, ensuring that no case is left behind. This is important for us to keep reminding community that their case has not and will not be forgotten during this quarantine. Rather, while working from home, our attorneys are still calling victims, witnesses, officers, obtaining all evidence, and thoroughly preparing our cases in anticipation of whenever this pandemic ends and we are able to get back to the normal court setting. We have to remind the community by reassuring the community that their calls for help will not fall on deaf ears. We can all remind victims that even during this pandemic, their voice will still be heard. Thank you.
Darrel and Ivon, could you both elaborate a little bit more on what the county commission did pass? From I understand, maybe Ivon, you can take it. It's an awareness campaign that needs to go to the people, finding the people where the people are, correct?
Absolutely. I think, Maria, that is the point. That is the focus of the campaign. It is to meet the clients where the clients are. We cannot expect that in a time like this one, where there are so many barriers for a victim to seek out help, that the methodology that we have been using up to now may continue to be effective. We have to be, in that sense, receptive. We have to look at the reality of our clients and we have to adjust our services. Otherwise, our services become obsolete and inefficient. So what the resolution has done is that resolution has indicated and has asked the county, the mayor, to take action on a series of matters. One, again, as it has already been stated, is that we are adding texting to our helpline. And I want to make that distinction for a minute. We have a helpline, which is the number that we respond, that we answer at CVAC. Mm-hmm. And that is the line that we are addressing today, because we also have a hotline, which is at the shelter, at the Safe Space hotline. But the one that we are working with right now is the helpline, which is the 305-285-5900, which is the helpline again. I want everyone to understand the difference between both. So basically, the resolution, Myra, speaks to the fact that we need to make some kind of visual, we need to make signs that we can post in certain areas, such as, for example, we need to connect with supermarkets, with those businesses that are essential, because again, to place posters in buildings that are closed, or to do, for example, we used to have a lot of posters posted in Miami-Dade County buildings, but most of those buildings are now closed temporarily due to COVID-19. So the whole idea is the community, but specifically into places that are still being frequented by people. Otherwise, we're gonna put posters and they're not gonna read them. So our main focus right now would be supermarkets, because that's where victims are still going. Those places are essential and they're open to the public. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at having information, having the phone line advertised, and having, again, the capacity to respond to those quotes when they come in through the texting and through the QR and all of those things. But exactly, it's to get out there in the community to the places where that could actually be beneficial. And instead of having, again, things that may not be touching this community right now.
So from the position of the Women's Fund of Miami-Dade, we want everybody to know that your support of us is supporting this community. The imagery that you've seen when you did the RSVP for this Impact Collaborative, and we've shown on other slides, is an image that has worked well for the state attorney and for Coordinating Victims Assistance Center. We will all be collaborating. You'll be seeing that very effective imagery in marketing, geo-targeting, and advertising that goes directly to the people where the people are, whether it be online or supermarkets. We'll be doing our part in collaborating and supporting our leaders as they ask us to participate. And we do appreciate very much that Catherine Fernandez-Rundle and you, Ivon, and others have invited us to support you how we may be. And we have to say that several people during the Giving Tuesday now did support us financially. So we'll have a few, extra campaign boosts that we can do because of the dedication of many people who are on this call right now. And so I have to share a moment of passion to say that as impactful as it was when we all realized that COVID-19 was shutting many things down, we who are all in this community very connected, and many of you who are listening now through task forces, coalitions, informal meetings, interfaith groups, faith-based groups, organizations who are giving direct services, we're all talking often. And it wasn't, let's shut down, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? It was like, oh, we have so much to do. How do we reiterate? How do we work together? From Barry University to Jewish Community Services to 211 to CVAC to the state attorney, it's really heartening and fortifying to see what this community has. All of South Florida working together just gets better every day, as far as I'm concerned, more capable.
Mara, I had a quick, I wanted to respond to one of the questions in the chat box, if you don't mind, that dealt with the stigmatization of
absolutely. Dr. Bell, you at the very beginning, we're going to go to those now.
Okay.
So I just want you to trust me that I'm not.
Oh, I trust you.
Or our amazing people who are chatting.
I know we have 10 minutes left, so this question is blaring in my eyes.
We're going to 10:30, so we're good.
Oh, I have until 10.
Oh, good. Okay, please do. Please go ahead. Yes.
There was a question about minority populations and stigma in terms of COVID and in terms of domestic violence. And so as a part of a solution, I think that is imperative that law enforcement and first responders and advocates have, just as we have sort of diversity training when we think of LGBTQ populations and even domestic violence within the LGBTQ community, we have to look at diversity and inclusion in terms of minority cultures and subcultures, especially Miami-Dade. We have so many different cultures and subcultures of individuals that if there's not a cultural understanding of that family or that subculture, or this is a subculture of a gang, or this is a subculture of someone from Guatemala or the mountain region, someone from Cuba, someone from Haiti, an African-American, a Mexican-American, whoever it is, there are cultural sensitivities that we have to understand to provide services. And because COVID has hit people of color more so than any other culture, we have to bring back not just diversity training and diversity inclusion, but compassion and empathy. If people have issues with bigotry or racism or misunderstanding of cultures, if they push someone back and they're stigmatized, if they're afraid, we're not going to be able to bridge build to provide services. And people that are reporting, that are scared, won't feel cared for, won't feel loved, won't feel as though their voice matters. And that is the most powerful thing we can do in terms of bridging the gap with all cultures as we face this issue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bello. Absolutely. Just a brief reminder before we go fully into the Q&A, please do remember to post your issues and some suggested solutions in the chat, and our team is collecting those and we do use them. I'd like to encourage everybody to say, to post solutions that might not necessarily seem like something major and earth-shattering. Sometimes the smallest solutions can be the most effective. Sometimes the low-hanging fruit is something that we can pick and act on collectively quickly. And don't be afraid of any big solutions either. Big collaborations, budgets that need to be allocated, petitions that we have to our elected officials. Don't be afraid of any of them, large or small, they're all more than valid. So I'm going to now go on to the Q&A, and we have, the first question was, how do you plan us believe that we're going to transition out of COVID-19? And I would say that if we could put it into the context of each of your work, Dr. Bello, if you'd like, since your time is limited, I'm gonna jump to you first and then go to Judge Kelly.
First of all, I want to thank the Advocate Program. I want to thank you, the Women's Fund, and really want to thank Catherine Fernandez-Rondo. The work that we do throughout Florida, even in Miami-Dade, we couldn't do without her. As we say at More to Life, she is the bomb.com state's attorney, and she has done so much related to domestic violence and human trafficking and crime. We love her. So if you hear this, we all want to say, we thank you and we appreciate you because you've created a model for our whole state and for our whole nation, I think, with what you've done. As we roll out of COVID, we have to understand key things. The transient aspect of victimization, whether it's domestic violence and some of the collateral damage of human trafficking or crime, that different districts, different communities and counties are on a different rollout. And so there might be a misunderstanding as to what's safe, who's safe, where to go, how to go. And so with our team, we're really teaching on the districting, not just in Broward and Miami-Dade County, but throughout Florida and all the other counties we serve, so that our staff, so that those we serve understand what's happening in each county. But moreover, to really be safe in terms of teaching social distancing and the perpetual aspect of just because you see someone else not practicing it, like at a beach or at a local restaurant that might open or wherever it is, that you practice it, that the elders and the most vulnerable populations are still exposed, that we will be exposed through the coming months. And so we still have to wash our hands. We still have to practice social distancing, as Ivon Mesa was saying so clearly, and Darrel and the judge were saying, and we have to be able to educate and inform perpetually. And we have to work with staff who might be dealing with individuals in trouble or going to homes where individuals aren't practicing that, and find sensitive ways to state that we have to still do that so there's not a discomfort. We also have to continue telehealth. What we're doing is some team members will do telehealth, some will be in the office. Even though we can fit 15 people in our office, it might be in our satellite office, even at Glory House in Miami-Dade, where there's only one person. The rest are working from home, and do the kind of schedules that really relegate safety, not just for those we serve, but for staff. And so when we do all that, when we follow the president's orders, the World Health Organization and the CDC, I think we'll be informed, and we continually do what you're doing today, Maura, at the Women's Fund, is keep, coming together having panels and video chats and understanding what to do over the next 3-4 months.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I have more questions. So if anybody really wants to address that one on the panel, please raise your hand. And if not, I'm going to do another question. I'm going to go to you, Judge Kelly, please. There's a question specifically for you. Judge, are the batterers intervention programs likely benign, being provided through telehealth? If so, if the perpetrator is in the house and the victim may not be able to engage in these services, what happens then? You're on mute, Judge. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I keep putting on mute because I don't want to disrupt the program. But yes, batterers intervention programs are still going on. We had a meeting just yesterday with all of the batterers intervention program providers. They are offering services in the large part remotely, although some providers are doing in-person one-on-one counseling. So the question is, what happens if a victim is in the home while the respondent is attending the counseling? Is that the question, Myra?
It's really specifically what if the perpetrator is in the house and the victim is not able to engage in the services?
Well, that's part of what we need to do. I mean, we have to get the public service campaign out there that there are services. We know that people are isolated and they're stuck with their abusers in the home and not leaving for so many reasons. I think it's great that we do have our batterers intervention programs up and running. I think it's great that in the criminal side, the state attorney's office and the courts are working together to have our judicial review calendars, meaning we're checking in on all of the defendants and respondents who are ordered to go to the programs. We're checking in to see what is going on with them. Are they in compliance? If not, why? What's happening? So we're reaching out to them and having those discussions, which we know will increase victim safety. How to get victim services when they're stuck inside. I think that's the purpose of this entire Impact Collaborative. We need to get the word out that they're available. I think what Ivon Mesa said about the different programs and the codes and the things that we're working on our community to allow victims to know that there is a safe way to reach out and contact. Those are all part of what we're trying to do to increase the safety of victims and to ensure that we have accountability on behalf of the offenders and the abusers. But I believe the check-ins and the batterers intervention programs are essential, particularly with those individuals that may suffer from mental health issues or drug abuse issues. This is a stressful time for everybody. And we know that the stress in the families is rising. And just like Dr. Bello said, so many of these individuals who are abusers came from an abusive background and they have a trauma history as well. So we need to deal with everybody. And our hope is, yes, we know that we're working with the respondents and the defendants. Part of this is let's get those victims that are alone, let's get them engaged as well. And how can we do that? We need to let them know that we are here for them and there are services for them, and we're here to help the entire family, including the children. Because as Dr. Bello said, the effect of domestic violence on children is lifelong. It impacts children not only psychologically, but physiologically. It impairs their ability to grow and develop. It even impairs their ability to, their telomeres, which is the ends of their chromosomes, don't develop properly. This has a lifelong impact, not only on their social, mental, but also on their physical well-being. So this is a community issue. It's an issue that's going to repeat itself if we don't get involved. And I hope that answers your question.
It's amazing. And I'm going to ask our Women's Fund amazing behind the scenes team to post for me one of the ideas that Judge Kelly and I actually spoke offline the other day when we were talking about this Impact Collaborative. Both of us have seen that in some other countries, they are creating shelters or housing, residential housing for perpetrators. So when there is a restraining order for somebody with domestic violence, the person who leaves is the person who's the perpetrator. So in many cases in several different countries, they have shelters for men who have been doing the abuse, and that allows the the woman and her family often to stay there. So these experiments are happening, and it's really behooves us to look at new best practices and creative ways that other communities are dealing with these issues, because they may apply here as well. Another question from our community here, please. Can you explain again what happens when victims and or perpetrators do not have access to computers or phones capable of using virtual formats such as Zoom?
I can jump in on that one.
Thank you.
Me too.
So for I can go with the criminal side, and I'll let the civil and that to Ivon. For our purposes, we are trying to do Zoom conferences with our victims or another platform, LifeSize. LifeSize does not need an app. It just needs internet connection. So we're trying both of those platforms for statements. If all else fails, we are still doing telephonic statements to try to get the statement any way possible as best we could. We will still confirm identification through the victim in any way we can possibly do, just to confirm that who we are speaking to is the correct person. With regard to court proceedings, if someone is in custody, so for the perpetrators, if they're in custody, there is Zoom capabilities at the detention centers for all hearings. So all inmates are being brought to all Zoom hearings. If someone is out of custody, we are trying to coordinate best possible to prepare for both the perpetrator and the victim to have capabilities prior to the hearing, so we're not caught off guard mid-hearing. We are trying to do all of our best preparing for that situation, so when the hearing begins, everyone has the correct capabilities, be it going to possibly a shelter that has the capabilities, doing it through the phone, any possible way to get everyone heard, because in Florida, of course, our courts are public, so we're trying to maintain that even in this remote age.
Regarding the civil and the injunction and all the other assistance, the relocation assistance and all of that, yes, I want to let everyone know that we're doing a lot of those things. We're doing them over the phone. We recognize the fact that victims may or may not have access to
Ivon, we have an audio issue.
what we're able to do over the.
Can you repeat that last line?
Okay, you don't hear me?
I can now, yes. And actually, if you could
Okay,
put
sure.
your camera down a little bit, so we can see you better while I'm at it. Perfect. Oh,
Okay.
a little bit more. Thank you.
So what else? More?
A little bit more, please. It went back. Just everybody wants to see the other way.
Oh, the other way.
Everybody wants to see you. Down a little bit more, and then there we go, Ivon. There's our fearless leader. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, what I was saying is that we recognize the fact that victims may or may not have a computer or may not have internet. So whatever we're able to do over the phone, we're utilizing the phone as one of the ways in which we can do a lot. And a lot is being done over the phone. But for those matters that necessitate more than a phone, such as, for example, in the injunction hearings, as the judge was mentioning before, we have a few, laptops at CVAC set up with Zoom, with Microsoft Teams, so that we can connect to individuals in whichever platform they may prefer. So again, we are very flexible in the way in which we're contacting our clients, and we're listening to our clients. If our clients have an availability in a certain way, that's what we're going to do. We have all of the platforms downloaded into these, laptops. We would do one, but again, we are really being creative in that we are exiting the regular ways of doing business to make sure that we're even meeting. We had recently a client that was tested positive, and we really had to get this check for relocation out to her. And if you see what we did to get that done, it was very creative. But the bottom line was that we were able to deliver this relocation check to this victim without putting our employee at risk and without really putting the bank at risk as well, because there are other components that are also involved in many of the things that we do. So I think this is the time for us to examine what we do and how we do it, and instead of immediately saying, well, we can't do it, which was what was happening in front of me. Well, we can't do this because how are we gonna do it if, you know, without getting the bank? And there are always ways to do things. And it's just, you know, requires that we will think outside the box and just find a way to get it done, because our victims are there and they still need us. So we will do whatever we need to do to carry on our mission of helping victims through whatever platform we may have available at the time.
Maria, you're on mute. Maria, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
It was my turn. Can I talk about leaf blowers later? So I just gave a shout out and our gratitude to Ivon Mesa and Miami-Dade County for supporting the vision of having the Coordinated Victims Assistance Center be exactly that, an organization that thinks out of the box and has 39, now maybe 40 services. Ivon, it changes, you bring it up every day. But so physically, victims can go and work there. Now what you're saying, to iterate and move forward and think out of the box again in times of quarantine and other duresses, and those will change. There will be more, but you've proven their creativity, and our community is so lucky to have you and that vision. Another question, are custody violations still being enforced in court? Also, are supervised visitation centers still open?
So custody issues are still being dealt with in court. The family division is up and running. People are obviously filing emergency motions. It's a very difficult time for families right now, because obviously transporting children is very difficult and can expose them to COVID-19. In terms of visitation, we're happy to report that through the hard work of our Family Court Services, which is our courthouse, in-house supervised visitation center, as well as coordination and counseling center, and the hard work of a woman named Erica Ruiz, who is our director, we now have online visitation taking place, time sharing taking place. You know, it doesn't substitute for the hugs with the parents, but sometimes there's issues why people can't be together. There's geographic problems and otherwise, but it really is important to the children. And just this morning, before we started this program, I was privy to emails from some of the individuals that had accessed Family Court Services, and the appreciation and joy that these families have to be able to visit with their children, to you know, talk to their children, tell their children everything's going to be okay, to help be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we are up and running remotely, and so I'm happy to say that.
In the same vein, one of our amazing one-team community partners, a leader at FIU, Linda has been asking, how about random check-ins for families with history of violence? Is that happening right now with COVID-19? I know DCF usually does that, but due to the excess of stress and anxiety right now, it seems additional oversight would be a good idea.
Yeah, DCF is still out and working. Now, there's issues, obviously, because people do not want DCF workers coming into the home. You know, for obvious reasons, we don't want anybody coming into our home. So there is a bit of tension there, but I can tell you that for sure calls are coming in and DCF is going out and checking on people. I know that in terms of checking on respondents, we're checking on respondents. I think Darrel can answer on behalf of the state attorney's office. They're checking up on all of the individuals who have been referred to programs or are on probation. And Darrel, maybe you want to follow up on that.
Yes, so for check-ins with families where a victim, the case is currently open, we are still speaking with all of our victims. All of our attorneys are working from home for the most part and still contacting all victims, witnesses, officers. If an attorney calls a victim and believes that they may be in danger, or they believe that the abuser may be back in the home, we can always call police and ask for a welfare check. So we are making sure we're still staying completely connected to our victims during this time, both telephonically and, if needed, contacting police to possibly do a welfare check on the home if we believe that something is going on.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. A question for more than one of you. Good morning. As far as securing help, what steps do you suggest that victims take? For example, call police first or call/visit CVAC first?
Now, if the person is in immediate danger, they need to call the police. There is no question about that. If your life is in danger, you need to call 911. So that is the number one directive, and I think we all agree in that. Now, after you have called 911 and you have dealt with the urgent matter where your life is in danger, then the second place to come would be to call CVAC, and we will begin to then talk about all your needs, if it is relocation, if it is food, if it is an injunction, whatever it may be. Then at that point we can help you. But definitely, if someone is in immediate danger, their life is in danger, they need to call 911.
And just if I could jump in, I mean, the whole issue with victim safety really revolves around getting the proper information. And that's why victim advocacy is so central. For some individuals, calling the police may be the smartest thing. For others, it may be going to court and obtaining a restraining order. For others, it may be not doing anything at the moment and gathering the proper documents and things that the individual needs to actually get out of the situation. So that's why the victim advocacy partners that we have are just critical in all of this. And we have wonderful partners throughout Dade County. We're really, really fortunate to have this type of collaboration and support.
Fantastic. And if you can stay there, Viviana, please, on this slide, because we have the question for Yvonne. Could you please, what phone number were you speaking of? The one that mentioned that victims can call, and soon we'll have texting capabilities.
305 285 5900.
And that's now answered 24 hours a day. Is that correct, Yvonne?
Yes, it is answered 24 hours a day.
Thank you so much. And let me see. Lots of comments saying that yes, providing services for the entire family, especially ongoing support for the treatment population, is very, very necessary. Dr. Bello brought that up. I would ask the panelists, do you have any other additional services that you believe are key to the success when some people will come to Darrel's office first, some will come to Judge Kelly's first, some will come to Ivon Mesa. Can you each address how important the collaborative effort is? We'll start with you, Judge Kelly.
Well, it truly, I think, as I was just saying before, collaboration is key, because every victim comes for help and asks for help, comes from a different circumstance, a different background, an entirely different situation. So each victim has to be dealt with individually. For some people, the services may be appropriate getting through the court, that a restraining order, setting up child support, getting the respondent out of the home, setting up a time-sharing plan, setting up mandatory counseling, referring the victim to other counseling and CVAC for services. That may be the thing that is needed. That may be the right solution. For others, it may be not calling the police, not going to court, but visiting CVAC and some of the other community service providers and getting their safety plans, getting the things that they need to get away, getting the economic support, the counseling, the things for their children, food, clothing, the essentials. That may be the right thing. And for others, it may be, we need to call the police. We need the state attorneys to prosecute. We need this person to be kept away with the power of the law, whether it be via jail, whether it be via GPS ankle monitoring. We need that help. But I think all three of us we all work together and know that together we're offering services, we're offering ways to safety for people in our community. And it's really up to each individual case. Each individual person has a different solution to what the problem is. And that's why it's so important that we all collaborate.
If I may add, I completely agree with Judge Kelly. It's all a collaboration and knowing what resources are available at any given moment, because every day it's different. I know Ms. Rundle and Ivon speak about the capacities of CVAC and the shelters because it's different from week to week, and knowing it each day is very important for all of our victim specialists at the state to best convey information to victims. If all of us collaborate, all of the community providers, to best know what everyone else is doing, each specialist and each community member can give the correct information for the wide spectrum. So as Judge Kelly said, each victim can pick and choose what they think is appropriate for their specific situation.
Ivon, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on this question. It's a follow-up to Dr. Bello's commentary about working with specific communities and being culturally sensitive and aware. Can you bring that also? What if the minorities are religious communities or people in the partners that you're working with for the CVAC and the partner organizations? How is that being addressed?
Okay, so when it comes to culture, one of the things that we want to do and that we're constantly, that is part of our culture period, is that we have a very robust trilingual group of individuals that are doing advocacy. So it depends upon the family that we're dealing with. It depends upon the situation. I have most of our advocates are bilingual, some are trilingual. So if at any given time in any of the violence prevention and intervention programs, we have a client that only speaks Creole, for example, we are ready in every program to be able to, engage with that client from a cultural perspective. And we are able to speak. We have trilingual capacity when it comes to our ability to communicate. Also, it's not only a matter of communication and speaking the language, it's also a matter of culture. Because you could be of a different nationality and speak a language. So we want to make sure that the individuals that we're hiring on an ongoing basis are reflective of the community that we serve. So with that, again, we are ready to serve individuals from all the most prevalent cultures in Miami-Dade County, being African Americans, Hispanics, Haitians. We have trilingual capacity. With regard to different religions, Maria, we have different type of partnerships where we are able to get consultation if we need to regarding other groups. This is always very complex because there are many, many denominations, but we certainly respect everyone's denomination. And when presented with issues, we have partners that we can call that may not be the typical partners that are in the center providing services, but when it comes to a consultation on a specific religious matter, we certainly can call them and they will guide us through. So it is our daily exercise to be able to take into consideration all those matters, because we know very well that without that aspect, many of our victims would not seek help because they feel that perhaps from a religious standpoint, they were married to stay in that marriage. And sometimes we need to speak from that perspective to be able for them to understand that, hey, yes, you got married, but this is what's happening. This has changed. Your marriage, it has changed. What you committed yourself to, and now you have to react differently. So having a spiritual leaders that we can call is very important. I wanted to also make a distinction about something that was being said before. And I want those who are there to understand that when I said that it would be adequate to call 911, I am referring to life-threatening matters. In other words, if you are in your home and you're being beaten and you feel that your life is in danger, that's when I'm referring that you need to call 911. Now, if you're not in an emergency situation and you need to make decisions, I agree completely with what the judge mentioned and Darrel, that it is only through true collaboration that we can put together a plan of action that is adequate and that addresses all of the victims' needs on an individual basis. There's some individuals that would, for them, as it was mentioned before, the most ideal course of action would be to call the police for a series of matters. But then there are other individuals in which we would recommend to not file a protective order, because we have knowledge of some in-depth elements that are characteristic of that particular family, where we know calling the police would actually jeopardize the situation instead of helping. The same thing with injunctions, the same thing with everything. So every case, there is an individual basis. There isn't a formula that we can apply to all DV cases for the outcome to be a positive one. Unfortunately, it takes more than that. It takes that daily, it takes that individual approach to each case for us to be successful.
And I completely agree with Ivon. If there is a crime that has occurred or is occurring, call 911. First things first, call 911.
There's so many great questions, and we're not going to get to all of them. There are questions here about meeting basic needs and who's out in the community knowing what duress different communities are going under, including food scarcity. Ivon, maybe you want to share the Share Your Heart app with people as well?
Absolutely. We have been blessed to have a partner that is called Victory for Youth. And they have a wonderful project, which is called Share Your Heart. And that's the name of the app, Share Your Heart. It's a red heart, a heart. It's a free app. And what that partner does is Rolando Gonzalez. Rolando Gonzalez has real-time information in that app, so that if anybody at any given time needs to know when the next food distribution is in Miami-Dade County, they can go into that app and they would have, you know, information that is daily, is updated daily to reflect all of the food distributions in our community. And because they're one of our partners in our community, in our CVAC center, we have always food for distribution at CVAC. They assign a series of bags of food. So every day we have bags at CVAC that we can provide to our clients. If there is anybody in particular, like we have a special request. Yesterday we had a special request for one of our human trafficking clients that we have in a hotel. We have resources, thanks again to that partnership, where we were able to pick up a few bags of food and take it to him in the hotel where he's staying. So basically, when it comes to food issues, we have a very strong partnership, and again, very proud of the work that Share Your Heart is doing, feeding thousands and thousands of families, not only through the violence prevention and intervention programs, Myra, but he's also doing it through the other hat that I wear. I oversee the Family and Community Division, which encompasses 12 neighborhood centers in the community. And they have been going steadily to these neighborhood centers. And every Thursday, they do a huge distribution of food. And there are thousands of citizens and families coming into those. Again, the best way to know all of the food distributions right now in Miami-Dade County is to go into Share Your Heart app, because all the information is being maintained there.
There are so many great questions here, and addressing the resources, I think, is a major one. Ivon, can you give just a brief list of the resources that work out of your office? I know you don't have to tell all 40, but just give people an idea, as basic needs are key.
Absolutely. I would begin by saying, again, as I've said it before, but I'd like to emphasize the fact that we assist victims in the process of filing for injunctions for protections. We also are certified to provide relocation checks for victims who meet the statutory criteria. They have to have, there are a series of criteria that it would take me a long time to explain per service. but so I'm going to say relocation assistance. We also have a rental assistance program by which we're able to provide a few months of rent. Also a deposit. For example, some of our clients are trying to move into a confidential new location, and they need that deposit to be paid. We assist with the deposit and a few months of rent. We just received a grant, Myra, which is gonna take us a month or so to prepare to be able to function under that grant, which is the Emergency Solution Grant. And this grant is to assist families from domestic violence situations with rent for up to 12 months. So come June 1st, we expect to be up and running with that Emergency Solution Grant. Again, it's a housing grant to help victims of domestic violence. We also have another grant that assists victims of human trafficking. Just yesterday alone, we received 5 different requests for assistance with rent of victims who are human trafficking victims and who find themselves in very difficult situations. We also have a variety of legal services. We work very closely with American for Immigrant Justice, and they provide immigration-free services to victims at CVAC. We also work very closely with CAVA that provide legal assistance for families in the areas of dissolution of marriage. They also assist us with the family self-help packages that we receive from the 11th Judicial Circuit, the Family Division, in order for clients to be able to get divorced. So we have the telehealth component, mostly done through the Trauma Resolution Center, in addition to other partners. So all of these services, food distribution, empowerment groups, they're still taking place at CVAC. So those are just some of the most important services, I would say, because those are the most needed at this time.
Americans for Immigrant Justice is actually with us on the line with some amazing questions, and I can't believe that it's 10:27 already. So we will continue to address those. If we can go forward on the slides, I'd like to each of you think, panelists, of a final call to action that you'd like to have, that you'd like to give us briefly before we finalize. Judge Kelly, what do you want people to do?
I want people to speak up. So we need to share the word of what's going on in our community, that we are open, that we are functional, the court is open, CVAC's open, the state attorney's office is open, the police are in the community, service providers are open. We are here to help. All you need to do is reach out. And if everybody can share this information, if we all take the time to really have a campaign, and I'm so happy that our commissioners funded a campaign, and the work that Kathy Fernandez-Rundle has been doing is so important, and we need to do more of it. We need to let everybody know, because people are sitting home. They may not be able to look at their phone. They may not, what they're looking up on the internet may be checked by the abuser, but in many homes, the TV is on because people are getting updates. So if we could use that medium and have these public service announcements out on the television, the victims are going to hear. And so I hope that together we can get the word out that we're here to help you.
Thank you. Ivon, one call to action?
I would have to agree with the judge. I think that the voice that we want, the message that we want to send out now is that there is help. And that we are up and ready. We are ready for victims to walk in, to give us a call, that you are definitely quarantined, but not necessarily trapped. We want victims to understand that there are still remedies, even in the middle of a crisis of the COVID-19. We have very practical, real type of assistance that is ready and that is available to victims. If you are in a situation where you're a victim of domestic violence, there is help out there. Please give us a call and we will help you, guide you through it.
Darrel.
One unified voice, that the services, the courts, the state, we're all open and ready and waiting to serve. Understanding what we've all said today and sharing these messages with the community, your community groups, pretty much everyone in the community, to understand that we are here for them.
The Women's Fund Miami-Dade's next Impact Collaborative will focus on one of our core pillars, which is economic mobility. And that will address some of these issues that I see here in the chat and are going to be absolutely essential to continue to address. So please mark your calendars to join us on Thursday, June 4th for economic recovery after COVID-19, gender inclusive solutions of us all working together. So thank you for posting your issues, your solutions, for engaging with us. And last but not least, our friends at Radical Partners counseled us that our first survey should be really short, and it is. And later today, you will find it in your inboxes. All of those things mechanically help us to move forward as we continue to collaborate together. Everyone, stay safe, stay strong, and thank you. Panelists, thank you all so much. We are
Thank you.
Thank you.
really blessed to have a community that works together as we do.
Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you, guys. All of you. Bye.
Carolina Garcia, Viviana Alvarado Pacheco, go team.
Yay.
Thank you all. Thanks everybody for tuning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done. Very well done.